What's up guys? In today's video we're going to be talking about the Bitmap meta and we're going to be giving some updates with trac. Currently Bitmap is up over about 15x from its mint price. The Bitmap floor price has been steadily rising and currently it's up about 13x from its mint price. Now there are some new updates I want to talk about in today's video, and this is going to have to do with the Bitmap meta. And if you guys saw the price of trac peaked out at around $1.45 at its peak. Now, I'm still bullish on trac. I still believe it's going to continue to do well. It was just getting extremely euphoric. In fact, it made about over a 10x within a matter of a month. So it's just got to slow down a little bit. So currently it's at around 5 to 6x from its lower prices. And I do expect more volatility with this coin, but in my opinion, it's still in the early days. It's a 10 million market cap. So this is still on the token list for the 2023 tokens, in addition to the others that I provided on the previous video. So let's give some updates with Bitmap. This has to do with inscribing different parcels. So the Bitmap block, the actual block that you have, is considered the district. But you can now inscribe these separate parcels. So I'm going to select a random block. We'll select one like right here, 493602, and it's going to show up over here. You can see here like there are a bunch of transactions on this block, and I'll copy this to show you guys this on Bitfeed. Bitfeed will show you exactly what the block looks like. TLDR, what we can do now with our Bitcoin blocks is that we can parcel them out. So each of these individual squares, they can actually be sold or given out to other people. So this whole entire district is the individual bitmap, and all of these different parcels are different transactions that happen inside that block. So going back over to Bitmap, I can see here that, hey, look, let's see, I got 0, 1, 2, these are the different transactions on there. And the inscribed, which are the untapped ones, are the ones that you've basically inscribed but haven't sent to anyone. Once you tap them, that's after it's being sent to someone or sent back to yourself. So you can give out these each of these individual parcels. So you can give out parcel 0, parcel 1, 2, whatever. And once these are inscribed, it will be one, like let's say for example I do number 1, it'll be 1.493602.bitmap. So instead of just like 493.602.bitmap, it's going to be one dot because I'm inscribing the first one. So basically if I received this one plot from this bitmap owner, then I would just be the owner on top of that bitmap. I don't own the individual bitmap. Now, some people may think this is actually diluting the market share, but in my opinion, it's actually increasing the total addressable market. As I look at Bitmap as a immutable metaverse on the most decentralized network in the world, which is Bitcoin. Let's go and give some comparisons of where we could see price-wise. This is the sandbox. The sandbox, the current floor price is 0.315 ETH. That's over $600. Now, let me show you how many they have in supply. They have 166,000 parcels. On Bitmap, there's about 800K. So it's about 5 times the size. So if we do 600 divided by 5, you can see here on estimate, if it compares to Sandbox, around $100 and something floor price. Floor of Bitmap is currently around $11 to $12. So that's something to keep in mind with this. Also keep in mind, it's still the early days. The holders, they climb about like 500 different holders every single day. And by comparison, if you look at the sandbox, there's 23,000 individual holders for all of their collection. It'll be interesting to see how this parceling comes out, but how can you capitalize on the bitmaps currently? Well, it has to do with the attributes. I made an article on Substack. I shared it on Twitter so you guys can check it out. But the TLDR on what you want to look for is you want to look for certain blocks that have really strong attributes in different areas. So an example is like a block that looks like a punk. But as you can see here, here's some screenshots of some different blocks. These are considered quote unquote punk blocks. So basically a punk block is a block that looks like a punk. You can kind of see it resembles, I guess, So if you go to CryptoPunks, they kind of have a silhouette that looks kind of like a P. You can see how each one has this generic P shape. And if you go over to the screenshot I showed you guys of the punk, it kind of looks like that. So that's how it's considered a punk bitmap. Now, these could sell for more, they could sell for the same. Who knows? This is all speculation. This is just a meta you want to look for because this is something that's provably rare. How? Well, because there's not as many blocks that have the punk shape and without it. And you can see here, this is traditionally what they look like. They literally just look like a square of blocks. And in the future, as more transactions happen on the Bitcoin blockchain, this will be more and more filled and it will be harder to distinguish that punk shape. So that's why, in my opinion, the punks would be an interesting one to keep on the list. Palindrome, there's a provably scarce amount of this. Why? Because 1, 2, 3, 3, 2, 1, that's a palindrome. It reads one way and then it reads the same way in reverse. So that's why I gave the examples of these. The billionaire block, this is something that's interesting as well. As you can see here, there was $1.89 billion of Bitcoin in this transaction. There's 63,089. Now, to show how common this is, well, I mean, it really just depends how many Bitcoins were sent in a particular transaction. So let's just go to, I don't know, 78888. Let's just take a look at this random block. This is one that's a little more recent than 436902. You can see here that there is only $8.48 million transferred in this block, and it looks kind of empty. The ones that are more congested and have a lot of Bitcoin on it, they are going to be, well, the billionaire blocks. This is only a millionaire block. It's not really valuable. But if you get something that's like a $10 billion block or even a $100 billion block, that would be nuts and ham. Now, this one is going to be a little more volatile because if the price of Bitcoin goes up, the block price also goes up. So it's kind of like, is it as scarce? Is it more rare? That's why it's one of those things to aim for a larger amount of Bitcoin or aim for one that has like the CryptoPunk or even the Palindrome. And you have some blocks like Batoshi and Leap Block. These are just rare based on who they were minted by and what was happening historically for that certain event. Another example of one that's scarce is one with only one transaction on that block. The reason why this is rare is most people are using Bitcoin now and making different transactions, especially with the inception of ordinals and BRC20s. So there's constantly different transactions on the Bitcoin blockchain. So it's kind of hard to get one of these single blocks. Now, you can get them, especially in the early days, like block 1 to, I don't know, like 50,000, because no one was using Bitcoin at that time. Something to keep in mind. And it's also going to hit this meta as well. You're going to be below the 6-digit bitmaps. Anything over 6 digits, like 100K plus, I mean, those are good. Like the closer you can get to 100K, great. But it's like, it's not as rare as the early blocks because there's always going to be more blocks that are minted. It's similar to like the ENS names, like the 100K, 10K club, etc. Then you have the special numbers. These are just going to be ones that kind of look cool. So like 333 or 7777 or I don't know, something dumb like 69420. Just different blocks that are like that. Just something that's like, hey, this is cool. This number is memorable. Or 8675309. Well, actually, it wouldn't be 8 because there's only 6 digits right now, so you can't really do all 7 digits. You then have narrative blocks like the Silk Road. You have the one with the ordinals first being introduced. So this is with Taproot being integrated into one of the blocks. That's something that would be of value. Then you even have the ones that are on special or rare sats. There's actually an easy way to filter based on the special and rare sats. This is on Ordinals Wallet. So if you go to Ordinals Wallet and go to collect and go under Bitmap, you are actually able to filter based on the different sattributes. So you can look for like the pizza sats, and I'll show you what that looks like. You got the pizza sat, which is basically the 10,000 Bitcoins used to purchase the 2 pizzas. You got block 9, block 78. You can pause the video if you want the list of all this stuff so you can go pick out your own bitmaps, whatever. But yeah, I gotta prove I'm not a robot. But if we open up the bitmap and take a click on this, you can see here you can filter based on sattributes. So if I want to do block 9, first transaction, all these, vintage, and we're going to pop these in. And I'll show you exactly what this looks like. You can see here the floor price is already trading at a large premium. You can see that this one is the cheapest one. So basically this is trading at around $750, whereas the floor price is like 12 bucks. It's trading at a massive premium. So if you can get some of these around floor price, dude, you're going to go nuts and ham. I mean, you all automatically just like, what is that? 70x your money. So good for you. Just something to keep in mind. Then you can even look for some blocks that are the difficulty adjustment halving blocks. So this is when like the Bitcoin algo changes to where it's easier or harder to mine more Bitcoin. This just happens as more miners go on board and off board. And some other updates on Bitmap. You can actually play around with a bunch of these different BAPs. These are just different Bitmap apps. I'll leave a link in the description below so you guys can check out all of this stuff. But basically, there's a lot of stuff popping on Bitmap, and in my opinion, I like the risk to reward on it, even at these prices. I would look for some with a stronger meta if you can get them around the floor price. This is a long-term play for me. If it does well, great. If it gets wrecked, well, it's like $13 a Bitmap. So this is something to keep in mind. Now, right now, I wouldn't say, hey, shell out $750 for one of these rare sats or one of these other, I don't know, considered valuable because it's 1.bitmap, 2.bitmap. That's literally just a leverage play on Bitmap. In my opinion, you can take that bet, but it's not really worth it at these stages with the risk to reward. I mean, sure, this could be something that pans out and ends up being massive, but it can also turn out to be a nothing burger. So it's like one of those things. Do you want to own 100 different bitmaps that will do really well at regular floor price? Or do you want to own one extremely special one? And if it takes off, well, you want to take profit, you can only sell one of them. It's just different risks or rewards to keep in mind. Now I want to give some updates with trac. Now, trac has been popping off. I'll show you guys the price so you guys can see. It went at its peak to $1.50. It's like nuts and ham, dude. I really didn't expect it to explode and take off after that video was made, but I'm bullish on trac. I believe it's going to do well. I really like Benny. Benny is one of the devs behind trac, and they ended up open sourcing. Well, it was always open source, but at least they are releasing this data so other people can latch onto this and use this. But basically, Bitmap is a one of the examples or proof of concept for trac. You can kind of see it right here. Actually, you can't. I got to zoom in. Yeah, there we go. Bitmap. It's indexed powered by trac. So, whatever. Trac is basically powering Bitmap. So, if Bitmap does extremely well, trac will also do extremely well like it's doing. And other people will probably index off of it. You can see here the floor price is still holding up really well on trac. And in my opinion, it's been one of the best performing BRC20s. Now, outside of the early ones. Obviously, if you minted something like Ordi or minted something like Meme, you're going nuts and ham and killing it. This is one of those that was a little bit later in the meta. I see this as like Bitcoin 1.0 or Bitcoin DeFi 1.0 would be like the Ordis, the memes, etc. And then this is kind of like Bitcoin 2.0. Here's an example of what Bitcoin looks like before trac. Everything is just running around like papers everywhere, and then once you introduce trac, you now have a organized library. That's the best way to understand it, but there are a lot of updates happening with trac, and I'm bullish on Benny. I like what he's doing, and especially with this new introduction of tapping. I can't even zoom out of this. Good times. Tapping is basically considered like the staking on Bitcoin, so it'll be kind of interesting to see how this turns out. Now, there is a Bitmap directory. I'll leave this in the description below so you guys can check this out as well. I don't do price predictions, but in summary, what I'm looking for trac and Bitmap is that first, for Bitmap, I like the risk to reward. If Bitmap does become the immutable metaverse standard on the most decentralized network like Bitcoin, I believe that the total addressable market for Bitmap is huge. Instead of just aiming at a game like Sandbox to where they're able to get around $600 as a floor price for over 160,000 different parcels, I believe that if successful, Bitmap is just at its beginning stages. Now, for trac, on the other hand, Using the example of Bitmap and what it's able to introduce and bring to the table is like the DeFi moment on Bitcoin. Ethereum had that with Graph and Chainlink, and I believe this same moment is happening with Bitcoin, the ordinals, and the BRC20s. Trac, in my opinion, is going to be an essential infrastructure token, and as always, time will tell. We'll see what happens. If you guys enjoyed this type of content and enjoyed this video, make sure you guys drop a like, subscribe to the channel, and tell me what you guys think of Trac, Bitmap, and what else you guys are looking at in the space. If you guys want to see what I'm doing in the markets and join the DigiSquad Discord, there's a link in the description below. And yes, now you have the ability to pay with crypto. And as always, guys, let's go ahead and hit you guys with a wisdom one-liner. Proverbs chapter 12, verses 17 or 27. The lazy do not roast any game, but the diligent feed on the riches of the hunt. Guys, don't be lazy. Get that game. Peace.